So which of the following statements concerning control deficiencies is true? Auditors should communicate to management in writing all control deficiencies in internal control identified during the audit. It sounds like I just said that on the last slide, so that looks good. All significant deficiencies are material weaknesses. All control deficiencies are significant deficiencies. An auditor must immediately report material weaknesses and significant deficiencies to the PCAOB. So hopefully you got A as true. In terms of what's wrong with the rest of these, so for both B and C, you could say all material weaknesses are control deficiencies or a combination of control deficiencies. And same thing for C. You could say all significant deficiencies are control deficiencies or a combination of control deficiencies. For D, immediately is a huge problem, the word immediately, and they're not reporting anything to the PCAOB. So, okay, how can I make this true? An auditor must report material weaknesses discovered during the audit to shareholders for accelerated filers, right? Because that's where there's a 404B opinion, right? These are all the problems. The word immediately, they don't have to report significant deficiencies to anybody apart from the audit committee, right? And management, obviously. They definitely don't have to report them to the PCAOB. And they don't really have to report material weaknesses to the PCAOB either. They have to report material weaknesses to the shareholders as part of the 10K in the 404B report. So the PCAOB can find out about it if they want to, but they're not reporting it directly to the PCAOB. And last thing, so I would recommend pausing at this point and going through and doing all of these and then coming back and we will go through them. A was management of E Inc. took steps to remediate material weaknesses noted by the auditor at 12/31/10. The auditor found and E corrected several material misstatements during her financial statement audit for 2011, and she believes that general controls over IT remain a material weakness at 12/31/11. So what type of 404B report should she issue? Well, there are still material weaknesses as of 12/31/11, so this is going to be adverse. B, due to its positions in volatile oil futures as of 12/31/11, the auditor of A believes that there is substantial doubt to remain a going concern. A Corp has described its position in the footnote. So nothing in here is a control issue. So probably for financial statement purposes, you would want to give them unqualified with an explanatory paragraph for this going concern, but for control ICFR purposes, it's going to be unqualified. Right, no control issues noted here at all. C, ABC Inc. has restated previously issued financial statements to reflect correction of a misstatement. All right, I'm gonna go back up here because I usually have a lot of people get this wrong. So remember this slide that says indicators of material weaknesses? And one of them was a restatement of previously issued financial statements. And okay, one thing that people get confused about is this says restatements of previously issued financial statements to reflect correction of a material misstatement. And this guy says restated previously issued financial statements to reflect correction of a misstatement, and the word material isn't on here. Okay, kind of goes without saying if you are going through the process of restating financial statements because of a misstatement, that the misstatement must have been material. It's kind of almost redundant to have the word material misstatement in there, because if it were an immaterial misstatement, you wouldn't have to restate. So the fact that the word material is missing here does not matter. So to conclude, this is adverse. Okay, D is the auditors of Enron identified significant financial statement fraud by the company's CFO. And again, we have the same slide. Remember this first item on this slide, that if you identify fraud, whether or not material, committed by senior management, that is an indicator of material weakness. So this is adverse E. The CEO of B changed inventory from LIFO to FIFO. Sounds like it was justified and it's adequately disclosed. Okay, again, for financial statement purposes, you would want to do the unqualified with explanatory paragraph. But for controls for 404B, this is a non-issue. This is just like one of a little trick question here, and it's an unqualified. Last but not least, F, due to a computer failure at its payroll service firm on 12/31/11, D lost its December payroll records. As a result, the auditor could not complete its payroll audit work, and they also didn't keep backups for data sent to the payroll service firm, so the records can't be reconstructed, and payroll expenses material. So I think we actually had this exact same question earlier on when we were looking at the financial statement, and it was like, I think it was part of the end of chapter questions in chapter 18. And for financial statement purposes, we had this being qualified due to scope limitation, right? So because of this sort of scope limitation association, a lot of people want to say disclaimer here. But remember, for control purposes, it's not that you don't know what's going on with controls. We can see pretty clearly here that controls are ineffective, right? So they have computer failures with the payroll service firm. That sounds like bad controls. And they don't even have pretty standard controls to keep backup records. Most companies that have the service providers also keep backup records in the event of a failure, and that is like a standard control to have, and they don't even have that. So that is another control failure in and of itself. So these control failure aspects of it from a 404B perspective lead you to conclude that there are ineffective controls here. So you can see what's going on from a controls perspective. So for the 404B, you would conclude adverse. So that is it for chapter 7.